just to make sure I wasn't getting into too much trouble, which I wasn't, but it was fine. But I remember being like, I don't want that thing because now they can call me and just kind of keep tabs. It was an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is a weird world.
I was gonna tell you got to hear the story. It's kind of funny. So I was saying like how my parents would kick me out of the house and say don't come home until dinner time, right? But my mother, in my sneaker, my little 10-year-old sneaker, she would like lift out the insole and she would tape a dime in there, and with a Sharpie marker she wrote our phone number and then put the insole back into the shoe. So I was like running around the neighborhood, and if I ever ran into a jam, I could like rip out the sole of my shoe, peel out the dime, and then I'd know to call my mom. And that was it. I had a bicycle and a dime in my shoe. That's all I had.
That's technology right there.
Yeah.
Your mom was advanced.
Yeah, right.
So,
I mean, like I said, I don't really want to be this like doomsayer, but like the things I'm talking about are in front of us.
They are.
And most people, it's interesting. Like I was talking to my friend yesterday about this, and he has 18 or 20 and 21-year-old kids, and like he's saying the same thing to his kids, and they're just looking at him like, Dad, you're crazy. And he's like, his kids are saying like, oh, like he's like the kid's like going like, oh, you know what, Instagram's not that good. TikTok really gets me. Like TikTok really understands me. And like, but like that's where they are. They're like, like, let's go for it. We're all in. Like, it's not even a question. So like, the interesting thing is like, we're generally in the same generational space.
Right.
We're having this conversation. This conversation is not being had by the younger generation. I don't think. I don't.
I teach high school kids. They do not have these. They don't think about these things at all.
No. One of the things I worry about with the accessibility of information for artists is you used to have to really research to find out who had already done the things you had done. Like, so you'd kind of go down a path maybe that's already been well worn without knowing it.
Yeah.
It would be fruitful. Whereas today, I think it could be difficult for young artists or even just everyone trying to have a creative endeavor to be like, oh, wait a minute, like this guy did that, so I can't do that, or this is too derivative, or like there's almost too much information where you can't run down that road that's already been ran down 15 other times and do it your own way. I think people sometimes have that stumbling block with that, with all the information available. I don't know if that's something you guys agree with, but when I think about cell phones and information, I worry about that.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that, we're all just like, I think about this a lot, and I think we're just like all accumulation of circumstance, and just like there's the circumstance and like the people that you've met and like how your mind's been opened by different circumstance, and like, so like, sure, I think what you're saying is true. But, I think a lot of times I think about Miles Davis, I think about John Coltrane, I think about the Velvet Underground, I think about the Stooges. I think about like, I don't think they had a lot of cones to swerve through, and they were just like going, and like it was just coming out, and they were just like like, and now it's just like it's all cones, and like with the phone. I mean, I feel fortunate personally. I feel like I'm like far enough down the track where I have my rhythm, and some people always say, they're like, oh, you're like this guy. I'm like, I don't know who that guy is, but
right.
Like, that's cool, like Vulcus, but you know, yeah, I mean, it's such a different world. And then, you know, I think the way that we're looking at it is also just super different than the way, because we're looking at it from where we've been to
Right.
where it is now, and through that lens. And these kids, they were not where we were, where you had to like fucking look for shit and then be like, you see one little picture and you're like, oh, there it is, look at that. And then you're like, fuck, should I Xerox this picture? Or like, how could I get this book? You know, like, oh, I gotta, remember that picture that I saw 2 years ago, you know, like that really moved you. But, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we're
completely.
coming from that framework. And now that the people are in this totally other framework. So I think it's hard to really, like, you could try to project into like what they're thinking, but then again, you are not looking from where they're looking from, you know?
Well, that I hate to say it, but that's a milestone for getting old. You know, it's like, you know, I constantly have to check myself, or my wife checks me, and she's just like, you know what, you sound old, and I'm just like, you're right. So, but you know, there is wisdom and experience that comes with that too. So,
yeah.
So, yeah, I just feel like a lot of this stuff too is like, it's kind of like a band, and like you're just like, you're learning how to play songs, and you don't play them very good in the beginning, and you just keep playing them, and hopefully you eventually get really good at playing them, you know. And I just feel like I've been playing some songs for a long time, and like I've learned, the chord progression, or you change from here to there, and then like, okay, so I just feel like I'm thankful that I can play. You know, like, you know, like I'm not saying I'm like the best or anything, but I'm just thankful I can play, and I'm thankful that people care, you know, like that.
So all of this being said, you know, have you ever had a moment where you felt an affinity for another artist? You know, you're like, I like that guy's work, or, you know, this guy inspires me, or have you just pretty much been, you know, on your own doing your thing and finding that momentum that you were talking about? Is there anybody that you find as an inspiration at this moment in time?
You know, the funny thing is, like, a lot of people would probably, I feel like a lot of artists, when they come to being asked this question, they'll probably try to swerve into something that's kind of like will make them seem cooler than they are, possibly, or maybe they just are cooler than me. But like, honestly, like, I'm really inspired by people that it looks like they're having fun.
Yeah.
In their practice. And like, when I look at Picasso, I'm like, that guy must have a fucking shitload of fun making that shit, you know. Regardless if he was an asshole or not, I think that must have been a lot of fun. And then, you know, whatever, Warhol had a lot of fun. Like, look, you're just like, man, what a body of work. And the dude was just like expressing all over the place, you know. And it just, those are, you know, further out ones. And then, like, my friend Barry McGee was always really inspiring to me. And Margaret Kilgallen, and but, you know, just I feel, you know, Barry's on the level of like a master. It doesn't matter if it's like 1 inch by 1 inch or 200 feet by 50 feet. He's gonna like knock it out of the park, you know. And it's pretty wild to like be in the presence of someone that can like handle spaces,
right,
impact like that, so but yeah, I mean, yeah, whatever, like when I made my first surf movie, like I wanted it to look like, obviously Bruce Brown was huge to me, but like I wanted to like those Ellen von Unsworth pictures in like the 80s, like those really grainy black and white pictures that she shot for like Guess and different stuff.
Yeah.
That had this dimension. I was like, if it could be like that, like that was a full reference. Like I was like that. The mystery and like the depth, I obviously did not achieve it, but that was definitely inspiration,
Yeah, that's funny that inspired you, and then you have guys, because they're raw and kind of intimate, and that Ellen can only get those images because she has that access. And then you have guys like Ryan McGinley coming up, who probably looked up to you and the guys, back in the day, and that was now he's kind of did that in his own world.
Yeah,
it's interesting to see that come full circle. That's kind of cool.
Probably not.
No?
I probably didn't inspire him.
No,
but he's great.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Do you feel like you've inspired anybody?
Sure. But that's not my place. That's not my.
No.
I don't need to. That's not something I need to speak on. Like that's for if other people are moved to speak about it. If they are, then that's fine. But sure. But yeah, I mean, also like the group that kind of Beautiful Losers group that I kind of grew up in, I think we're all kind of like feeding off of each other, and influenced by each other. So, I mean, as far as this kind of like more, and especially at a certain point, probably less now, but at the time when it was kind of like together.
Yeah. I was a very young kid skateboarding back then, and I went to a couple of the exhibitions, and I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I used to skate the banks and everything like that, and I'd just be like, well, these guys are starting to paint. Maybe that's something I could do. And I remember just being like, wow, that's like an actual path, probably not a smart one for anyone, but I enjoyed it. And it kind of knowing that was something that was a real thing and attainable, because art for me seemed like a very esoteric thing till I saw that happening. I thought, I was like, oh, well, these guys are just a bunch of skateboarders making really cool art and enjoying it and having fun. And I thought that was a really cool moment there that I think it affected a lot of people in New York in the art world. So I don't know. For me, it was like, that was a tipping point, and it came more from my skating than from like the art, but then through skating, I found that,
Sure.
Cool. But that was a very specific time and place. So
what years were you skating the banks?
Oh, geez, like late 90s, basically. So I was living on Long Island, and I would come out, jump on a train, no cell phone, go hang out there for a day, find like some back bodega burrito and eat that, and like, try and get home on time. It was fun.
Yeah.
I wasn't great, but I was doing all right.
Yeah, you were there.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So like, I actually wound up going more into surfing just because we're at my location, but I skated almost all of my young life into like my adulthood till I think I stopped really skating aggressively in 2006 because I like fell and broke my wrist really bad and I couldn't do it.
Dude, that's what happens. I
feel like an old man.
Once again, the old man shows up.
But I was in London in Lewisham at a skate park. I came off a handrail and like snapped my wrist completely in half and had to walk into a hospital with a skateboard and like a grown man with a busted wrist. And they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I guess I should, I still skate for fun on a bowl on occasion, but it's, I stopped aggressively skating at that point and focused, all my attention on the surfing side of things, which I was better at anyway." But I think skating informs surfing in a really nice way if you're doing both. Anyway, my little,